Alright, so in this video what we're going to talk about is another couple of different types of transition. Actually it's the same, it's just I guess a couple different ways that you can do it. It's a color to color, or most often it's like a black to black or a white to white transition, which basically is you zoom all of the way in or move the camera into something that totally covers the screen in a certain color. And then what you do is you start your camera in a different position, a different location, whatever it might be. Start it out extremely tight in the same position, but you pull back out, and it provides a transition. So when your camera goes in, you cut, and then you start somewhere else, and then you pull back out, and you're in a different location or a different time or whatever it might be, and that provides a transition between two things without having to use a dissolve or a white flash like we talked about before or whatever. And the other thing is what's called like a natural transition, which might be an object coming into view or moving in front of your camera that again totally covers up the frame, and then as soon as it visually looks as though it's about ready to move off the screen, you cut, and then it goes to a different scene altogether. It's pretty easy to do once you get the hang of it, but if you do it wrong and the editing's done just a little bit wrong, it'll look a little bit weird. So yeah, something walking in front of the camera, or you know, you can use cars, trains, anything that's moving within the scene. Seen guys use like construction equipment like backhoes and stuff like that. All sorts of different things. So anything that comes in to frame, but it has to flip the entire frame. If there's something like this and you can still see part of the frame, it's not going to work because people can still see it. My hair looks freaking retarded. People can still see what's going on behind what's now covered up on the frame. So I'm going to do a couple quick examples real quick of black to black and then of a natural transition, and you guys can kind of get an idea for what I'm talking about. Okay, one thing that I did want to mention is, as you can see in that last transition, the natural transition, it does help a little bit to be in different, I guess, focal lengths, or at least different shots when you transition from one to another. Of course, you can always go real tight to something, and that's kind of a transition in itself, but it does help a little bit to make it a little easier on the eye, because if they're both kind of wide to wide, that almost always looks a tiny bit jarring to the eye. But as long as something completely covers up the frame of your camera, that is, and it goes to something else, it's alright. It can work. It's not the cleanest, it's not the greatest, but it does work, and it doesn't dissolve and slow down your story and get really monotonous. So it's a little bit of an idea of how you can do something a little bit different. You might also know that I'm sitting on the other side of the camera this time, and the reason is you can use this as a way to go between two different interviews, and that's something else that we'll talk about in the next video, is how to go from interview to interview with having changing, shifting, bouncing heads between two different people. Of course I'm going to use myself, but that'll be our next tutorial, is how to transition between person and person. And yeah, so I hope this helped a little bit and give you guys a little bit of an idea how you can be a tiny bit more creative and not use the same type of transition every single time. Alright, thanks, bye.